Some people pray for a healthy relationship while silently doubting themselves. Others trust their own judgment but forget the hand of God that guides it, the truth. Without both, love can't survive. We live in a time where relationships are under pressure, expectations are high, patience is low, and faith is often an afterthought. Yet every lasting bond has two invisible pillars holding it up: trust in God's wisdom and trust in your own worth. One without the other creates imbalance. Trust in God alone, without self-belief, leaves you passive, waiting for miracles without taking action. Trust in yourself alone, without God, leaves you blind to a bigger purpose. When you learn to walk with both, you stop relying solely on circumstances or emotions. You become anchored in something deeper, something unshakable. This balance doesn't just strengthen romance, it transforms how you show up in every connection you have. Faith as the foundation means more than simply saying you believe in God. It's living as though that belief is true, especially in the complex, unpredictable arena of human relationships. In a world where feelings shift quickly and people change, faith in God becomes the one constant that steadies your heart. When you truly trust Him, you stop viewing your relationship as a fragile structure that could collapse at any moment. Instead, you see it as something being built brick by brick under the guidance of a master architect. This doesn't mean you relinquish responsibility or simply leave it in God's hands and do nothing. It means you act with the deep conviction that there is a purpose to the trials, the joys, and even the moments of silence between you and your partner. That conviction changes how you speak, how you listen, and how you handle conflict. When your foundation is faith, you are not desperate for constant reassurance, because your worth is not determined by whether your partner praises you today or is distracted tomorrow. Your stability comes from a source that doesn't shift with moods or circumstances. Trust in God gives you the courage to love without clinging, to give without keeping score, and to stay patient when growth is slow. It allows you to forgive without feeling like you've lost something, because you know forgiveness isn't about weakness. It's about aligning yourself with a higher strength. It's easy to say you love someone when everything is going well. Faith is what enables you to keep loving when there's misunderstanding, frustration, or distance. Without that anchor, even small problems can feel like proof that the relationship is failing. But with faith, you can weather the storm knowing that hardship is not the end. It's often the very ground where deeper connection can grow. When you view your relationship through the lens of God's plan, you begin to recognize that timing, challenges, and even conflicts can be tools He uses to shape both of you into better people for each other. Faith also frees you from the illusion of control. Many people try to manage every detail in a relationship out of fear. Fear of loss, fear of betrayal, fear of the unknown. But the truth is, you cannot control another person's thoughts, feelings, or choices, no matter how much you love them. Trusting God means accepting this reality without bitterness. You learn to do your part with sincerity and let go of what is beyond your power. This surrender is not passive, it's active trust. It gives you peace in uncertainty, because you know that even if the path twists or narrows, there is someone guiding it who sees more than you do. And in that peace, you find the space to love freely without the suffocating weight of constant fear. That is why faith is not just an accessory to a relationship. It is the unseen bedrock that holds the entire structure steady. Without it, love is built on sand. With it, love has the strength to endure. Self-trust builds confidence, and confidence is one of the most attractive and stabilizing forces you can bring into any relationship. When you truly believe in your own value, you stop approaching love from a place of desperation or insecurity. You're no longer constantly scanning for signs that you're enough, because you already know you are. This doesn't make you arrogant, it makes you grounded. A relationship is not meant to be a constant search for someone to validate you. It's meant to be a shared journey between two whole individuals. When you trust yourself, you make decisions without being paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes. You speak honestly, knowing that your voice matters. You set boundaries not to create distance, but to protect the health of the connection. And in doing so, you create an environment where respect can grow naturally. Without self-trust, Every disagreement feels like a threat. Every bit of silence feels like rejection. And every challenge feels like proof that you're failing. You begin to rely so heavily on your partner's approval that your emotional state swings with their moods. This not only exhausts you, it puts a weight on the relationship that it was never meant to carry. No one can be your constant source of self-worth. It's too heavy a burden. Self-trust means knowing that you are capable of handling what life throws at you, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's painful. It's the quiet confidence that allows you to say, I can work through this, instead of, I'm nothing without this person. And ironically, when you can live without clinging, you often strengthen the relationship because your love becomes freer, less driven by fear. Believing in yourself also gives you the courage to grow inside the relationship. If you lack self-trust, you will avoid difficult conversations or pretend to agree with things that bother you just to avoid conflict. But growth requires honesty, and honesty requires courage. When you trust your own instincts, you can bring issues to the table early before they become unspoken resentments. You can express your needs clearly without apologizing for having them. This doesn't mean you always get your way. It means you contribute your full self to the relationship. And that contribution is what makes love deeper and more authentic. Self-trust is also what allows you to take responsibility for your actions without drowning in shame. In every relationship, you will make mistakes. You will say the wrong thing, misunderstand, or act selfishly at times. Without self-trust, mistakes become evidence that you're unworthy. But with self-trust, mistakes become opportunities to learn and improve. You can admit fault, apologize sincerely, and then move forward without carrying the weight of endless self-blame. That strength, that resilience is magnetic. It tells your partner, I am here, I am capable, and I'm committed to becoming better. When both partners trust themselves, they can trust each other more easily because they know they are dealing with someone who is strong enough to stand on their own and humble enough to stand together. Mutual growth through balance is the quiet, steady force that turns a relationship from something fragile into something enduring. When two people learn to balance spiritual trust in God with trust in themselves, they create an environment where growth becomes inevitable. Faith in God keeps the relationship rooted in a purpose bigger than either individual, while self-trust ensures that each person is actively shaping their own life and identity. This combination prevents one of the most common relationship traps: dependency. Dependency is when your happiness, stability, and even sense of identity rest entirely on the other person. It feels romantic at first, but over time it becomes suffocating for both. Balance means you can lean on your partner without collapsing into them. It means you can walk together without losing the ability to stand on your own. In this balance, spiritual trust acts as a guiding compass. You believe that God is at work even when the road is unclear, and that belief gives you patience. But self-trust is what keeps you walking forward on that road. Without self-trust, you might wait endlessly for God to move mountains without ever picking up a shovel yourself. Without spiritual trust, you might try to control everything, exhausting yourself and straining the relationship. Together, they keep you from falling into passivity on one side or burnout on the other. The beauty of this balance is that it allows both partners to grow individually without fearing that growth will threaten the relationship. Instead, each person's progress becomes a gift to the other, a sign that they are becoming a stronger, wiser, more loving version of themselves. Balance also reshapes the way you approach challenges. Every relationship will face seasons of tension, misunderstanding, and even distance. In an imbalanced relationship, these moments can spiral into blame, withdrawal, or fear of abandonment. But when both people are rooted in God's wisdom and anchored in their own confidence, challenges become moments to learn and adapt. There's less pressure to win arguments and more focus on finding truth and understanding. You begin to see conflict not as a sign of failure, but as an opportunity to practice patience, humility, and resilience. The relationship becomes less about protecting your ego and more about building something lasting together. This balance also creates emotional safety, which is one of the most important ingredients in any healthy relationship. When you trust God, You can forgive more freely because you know there is a higher justice and a bigger picture beyond the present moment. When you trust yourself, you can be vulnerable without fear of being destroyed by rejection or criticism. This emotional safety encourages honesty. You can admit weaknesses, share fears, and dream out loud without constantly editing yourself for fear of how the other person will react. Over time, that honesty deepens intimacy far beyond surface-level attraction. A relationship where both partners are growing in this balanced way becomes a place of freedom, not confinement. You don't have to dim your light so the other can shine, and you don't have to shrink yourself to keep the peace. You can celebrate each other's victories without feeling threatened, and you can weather each other's struggles without losing faith. It is in this space where God's guidance and self-belief meet that love not only survives but thrives, becoming a source of strength for both people and an inspiration to everyone who sees it. Love rooted in strength, not fear, changes everything about the way you experience and sustain a relationship. When fear is the underlying driver, fear of losing the person, fear of being alone, fear of not being enough, you end up making decisions that compromise your dignity and your peace. Fear pushes you into patterns of control, jealousy, and overthinking. It whispers that you must constantly prove your worth or the other person will leave. The problem with fear-based love is that it's exhausting and unstable. You can never relax because you are always defending against an imagined threat. But when love grows out of a place of strength, strength that comes from trusting God's plan and believing in your own value, the entire dynamic shifts. You are no longer holding on out of desperation. You are choosing each other out of genuine desire. Strength-based love comes from knowing that you are complete on your own, but better together. It allows you to give without keeping score because your worth is not depleted by generosity. You can support your partner without losing yourself in the process because your identity doesn't hinge solely on their validation. This kind of love has room for patience. It's not frantic or insecure. It knows that time apart doesn't diminish connection, and that disagreements don't mean the end of the story. It also allows for healthy boundaries. Fear makes you say yes to things you resent, agree with things you don't believe, and hide your true feelings to avoid rocking the boat. Strength gives you the courage to speak honestly, even if it risks temporary discomfort, because you know that truth is the only path to real intimacy. When love is rooted in strength, forgiveness also looks different. In fear-based love, forgiving someone often comes from a place of not wanting to lose them, even if the hurt runs deep and the issues go unresolved. But in strength-based love, forgiveness comes from a place of clarity and intentionality. You choose to release resentment because you value peace, growth, and the possibility of a stronger connection. This doesn't mean tolerating harmful patterns. Strength-based love knows when to walk away if necessary because it refuses to sacrifice self-respect for the illusion of togetherness. Another powerful outcome of love rooted in strength is the freedom it gives both partners to grow. In fear-based love, personal growth can feel threatening. One person worries that if the other changes, they might no longer fit together. But in strength-based love, growth is celebrated because it makes the relationship richer. You can cheer for each other's success without insecurity, knowing that your connection is built on mutual respect, not dependence. You trust that God's timing and guidance will carry you through seasons of change, and you trust yourself enough to adapt and keep building together. Ultimately, love rooted in strength is steady, clear, and deeply fulfilling. It is not shaken by temporary storms, because it draws from a well that doesn't run dry. The combined assurance of divine purpose and personal worth. When you love from this place, you are not driven by the fear of losing something fragile, but by the joy of nurturing something strong. And that is the kind of love that not only lasts, but grows richer with time.